It feels great to be back here in Anne Arundel Community College. It feels like we're home because this is our home. It's part of the Magothy River watershed, but we've had decades of working with the community college on all kinds of projects, you know, from the very beginning. And I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to work with Tammy in the Environmental Center, and we're going to be doing a whole bunch of things in the near future with them. Tonight, I get to take the night off. So I don't have to say a lot because the program is already done by Dr. Sally Horner. But I do wanted to bring up a few little things that I thought would be to start with. And one of the things, let's talk a little bit about the watershed. The watershed actually is bigger than you think. It's 35 square miles. It is at least 67 mile, or yes, it's actually 71 miles around, circumnavigation. And I do that at least twice a year. The Magothy River Association, for many of you who haven't heard or know, we're an all-volunteer organization, and we have about 30 communities and maybe 300 members. And we were established in 1946, so we've been around for a long time. And our mission basically, and if you had one of these, and hopefully you can pick one up, is to preserve and protect the Magothy River. You know, we're basically an environmental group. In the early 60s, though, we did more things with planning and zoning and land use. That was a big topic in the 60s and 50s. And I would say I'm learning more and more. I got involved with this maybe 25 years ago, and I've been president about that same length of time. But I'm learning more and more about those early days, and I've been shocked just recently to realize, after reading some of the old newsletters, that we actually took a case to the U.S. Supreme Court. The small Magothy River Association had enough go power to go all the way through. Now, it had something to do with telecommunications, but it was just interesting that that happened. Today, we do a lot of projects. And sometimes I get confused on just how many we're doing because I can only keep one ball up in the air at a time. And there seems to be a lot of them. As you will find out tonight, all the different projects that we're involved in. And one of the things I've done over the years, and I will continue to do this, is the circumnavigation. And this is something that if somebody wants to be part of, I usually ask people to join me and take a leg. Now, again, that 71-mile trip, it takes almost 3 weeks to do. And this was partially done. You can see the only part that I didn't do was on the South Shore by Lake Placid. But the rest of it is done, and I make notes on what I see. And those green areas, you will find out, are very extraordinary importance because they're the areas that I saw the underwater grasses. Next slide. We have a history of doing things that no other people do or start things. And one of the things that we've recently started is to use drones in some of our work. We're using drones, in this case, this actually was with the community college a few years ago, just experimenting using 2 drones. And we're looking for underwater grasses with the drones. And we're going to expand that this year to using it in what Brad has helped with a little bit of construction monitoring, where you have stormwater discharges, and we'll be able to use the drones to map that and to help the county where there might be silt fences that are missing. In addition to that, we're going to try something really cool, is that we're going to use the drones to locate heron nests. Heron only nest in a certain type of pine tree. And unfortunately or unfortunately, they kind of, wherever they poop, it stays on the nest, and it's easy to see from the air. So, and the reason that you would do that is a heron is this kind of protected species, and it qualifies for a 1,000-foot protective buffer. So locating these heron nests is a way that I can kind of keep the woods together and kind of keep a little bit of control on development. Next slide. Yes, there's Tim Tebele from the community college. He's the instructor, the guru, the go-to person to get their license. And I'm proud that we now have a licensed FAA pilot, and we actually have a drone called Magothy 1 is our drone. We have, again, I mentioned about FIRST. One of the things that's little known about the Magothy River Association is we invented oyster gardening. It came right out of the Magothy River Association in the early 1990s by Michelle Cummings. And from years, every once in a while, it kind of falls off, kind of falls on, and kind of falls between the cracks. But we have a number of oyster gardeners. This year, I want to revive that. I want to try to get as many oysters as I can from different peers to get involved. And the reason for that is, and you'll find out at the end of this, we have now an oyster bar reef, and where we grow those oysters at People's Pier, we will put them on that reef. And the combination between the live oysters and the habitat will make a much greater ability for recreational fishing in the Magothy. Next slide. Oh, yes. So this is an interesting slide because I was just talking to the county about this. One of the things that we have been doing very successfully is we have a program called a Living History Program. And so this happens to be the New York 8th Regiment. And this regiment was stationed on Fort Gray, which was the name of the fort, on Mount Misery. And it's interesting, and it says right on top, engineers. And so those engineers actually built the fortifications. What's really interesting is every one of those faces that you saw there were on Mount Misery in Severna Park. Because I did look at the records, and there were no casualties for that unit before Bull Run. So those faces are the ones that were on top of that hillside. That's all I want to say about that. We're going to it's planning to have a really nice living history video. There's going to be some signages. It'll be a big thing. Probably invite some representatives from the New York National Guard. They're already kind of interested. They want to come down for the ceremony. So it's ongoing. Okay, so this guy is Captain Johnston. And Captain Johnston actually wrote the official record. And what's interesting is you'll see on the box there, it says Annapolis. So he was stationed in Annapolis coordinating the building of Fort Gray on Mount Misery. So we have all this detail that we're finding as we're going. All right, so you've all seen these models out here, and sometimes I get surprised myself when I look at them. And I spent a lot of time making them. So the model in the back is Mount Misery. And so what's significant about that is when you go to these planning and zoning hearings or Board of Appeal hearings, you've got a flat map, a literally flat map. So you have no idea unless you know contours, what you're looking at. So when I first started to see anything about Mount Misery, I did know that it had something to do with a Civil War fort, but I didn't really know it was like that. And so I went up there to talk to the lady up there about the fort, and I said, oh, you want to put a house there? No way. So when I started to do that, I did find out that the slopes were 55% on the Severn River side and 37 feet. And I did that by one layer at a time, laying the contour on. The map in front of you is an unfinished map because we're still in court and we're going to go to the hearing on June 21st. It's called an enclave. So just looking at that, you can see that it's the same scale as the other map. But what's important is that while I hadn't finished it, you can see the yellow clips are where the houses go. It's 12 houses. And I don't know if you can notice, there are two green slips, little push pins. Those are the stormwater controls. And so when you put this in 3D, you'll see immediately that at least four of the 5 homes have water doesn't flow uphill. We are going to be working, I just was talking with the South River Federation. So the best way to say that is maybe we're going to subcontract with them since they're a little bit better at doing things than we are. We're more science oriented. We're more going out and doing projects, but we don't really do the big projects. So this is a 2.5-mile restoration project for Cattell Creek. And as you will find out today, unfortunately, Cattell Creek has the old black dot that we can't get rid of. So there's motive and reason why we want the state, the county, to invest in 2.5 miles of restoration for Cattell Creek.